Hello and welcome to this practice exam conducted by IELTS Daily. My name is Maddie and I'm your practice examiner. The questions in this test are designed to simulate the IELTS speaking test. Let's start. What's your first name, please?
Saskia.
Thanks, Saskia. At the beginning of the IELTS test, you'll be required to provide an ID, but as this is a practice test, we don't need to do that today. I want to begin by talking about you. Do you have a large family?
I don't actually. It's just myself and my brother, so it's very tight-knit.
Mm-hmm. And how often do you speak to your family?
Every day I make sure to call my parents, both my mom and my dad, at least once a day. And my brother and I are very close, so I'm actually going over to see him after this. Because of the distance, I make it a point to call them every day so we don't feel such a large gap.
Okay, let's move on to the topic of water. Do you drink a lot of water?
I try to. I know you're supposed to have like 6 liters a day. That does not happen, but I try to keep a bottle on me as much as possible.
And do you ever drink bottled water?
I do, yes. Because in Sri Lanka, where I grew up, you don't actually drink water from the tap. You can't. You will get sick. But yeah, so I do drink quite a bit of bottled water.
Now I want to talk about the sky. Do you like to look at the sky?
I do. It's very peaceful and just calming to look at the sky.
Do you prefer to look at the sky during the day or the night?
If you're not in the city, I think the night sky is stunning because you don't have the light pollution, so you just see a lot of stars and it's just beautiful. But if you are in the city, I can see why the sky during the day is a lot more pleasing.
And do you enjoy learning about the stars and planets?
I do. I think it's very interesting how the stars and the planets really influence how people perceive their lives. I'm not saying that they actually influence your life, but I'm saying how, I feel like people always want something to blame when things go wrong, and the stars have been a very good scapegoat for them.
Great. I'm going to give you a topic and I'd like you to talk about it for 1 to 2 minutes. Before you talk, you'll have 1 minute to think about what you're going to say, and you can make notes if you wish. Here is a paper and pencil for making notes.
Thank you.
And here is your topic. I would like you to describe an older person who has inspired you. Okay. So remember, you have 1 to 2 minutes for this, so don't worry if I stop you. I'll tell you when the time is up. Can you start speaking now, please?
Yes. So an older person who has inspired me would be my mother. She is, well, I know her because she is my mother. And I don't see her very often because we live so far apart, but I make it a point to call her every day, communicate, and literally if I'm doing something, she'll be on the phone there with me and I'm just talking. Like, I'm just wasting time, but I am just talking. And the reason I find her so inspiring would be because she didn't go to university. She got dragged into, she got a modeling job, started that. And from that point on, she has gone on to, she is a director of finance at my parents' companies. And she built buildings she built the office buildings herself. She built a house herself. And she didn't have the educational background that so many people think is necessary for you to do so many things with your life. But she has done everything, and she's one of the most intelligent people that you would ever meet. Like, you can have a conversation with her and you'd think that she was the most learned scholar, but really she just has an opinion and she just goes with it, and she'll make sure she knows. She makes sure that she knows you know that her opinion exists and is valid. And yeah, so that's why I find her so inspiring. It's just that she never let anything stop her. When she grew up in the height of the war back home in Sri Lanka, and she still didn't let that inhibit her getting an education or getting places in life. She always made sure that regardless of what happened, she and her family were well looked after. She was a working mom, but she always made sure that by the time 3 o'clock came and my brother and I were out of school, she was hands-on. She would drive us to classes, take us back, swimming practice, drama classes, this, that, and the other. And she was very, very involved, which with a working mom, you don't always expect.
Great. Thank you. Now, let's talk about older people generally. Who normally looks after older people in your country?
Well, the family. Back home, as much as possible, you wouldn't put anybody older into a home. You'd look after them yourself. You'd look after your parents yourself, because we have the idea that my mother looked after me, it's my turn to look after her. That's the sort of mentality. But I think now with migration becoming so big, you have a lot more people who put their parents in homes and then just migrate to other countries like Australia, the UK, wherever else. But for the most part, we look after our parents and our older people.
Does the government provide good social care for elderly people where you live?
Not really, because we are a developing country, and because of that, I feel they don't actually take the time to make the space and I don't know how best to explain this, because it's such a complicated and dynamic thing, because there's so much political involvement with the social lives of people, but somehow it's not always for the best. And when it comes to, having a good social program for older people, it's hard to say that it exists. Not for a lack of trying, but it's just a lack of follow through, I think.
How can society ensure that older people are not neglected?
I think it comes with teaching the younger generations to respect their elders, because neglect, it's something that, if you see your parents neglect their parents, you're more likely to neglect your own. Does that make sense? And if you teach young kids that this is how you are supposed to care for somebody, regardless of how old they are or how valuable they are to you and your society, I think then you'd make sure that, there's less neglect going on of older people.
Great. Thank you very much. That is the end of the speaking test.